Episode 102 of the podcast. Yeah, this week we're talking about that classic bad experience. Oh, I don't understand why he's like this. He's never had a bad experience. Or he must have had a bad experience. Or how can we avoid this bad experience? What is the bad experience? So, we're going to talk about some examples from this week, and we're going to talk about matted dogs and how that can turn into a bad experience. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. I had a customer this week with a little doxy, and this little doxy doesn't really like strangers, doesn't like being picked up, doesn't like grooming. So we worked on this modified. We're not going to do everything today, right? That's perfectly reasonable. You're a groomer. You're like, we know we have these problems, so we're going to work on it. And I planned ahead, which I encourage all of you to do. We're not going to do all of it. I'm not going to turn on a dryer with this dog, right? But anyway, we get the dog in the tub. We let the owners stay. And here's the owner, and this is so typical of an owner, right? Here's the owner saying, I don't understand why he's like this. He's never had a bad experience. And how many of you have felt that? Like, why is he like this? He's never had a bad experience. He's never had a bad experience being groomed. So I think what owners think of as a bad experience is an injury. And what I tried to explain to this particular owner is, as we were working at, I talk the whole time with the dog and with the owner and help them understand what's going on. And I'm pointing out all of the body language that I'm observing that this dog is uncomfortable. And I had to try to explain to him, this is his bad experience. He met a stranger who is getting him wet and massaging him with warm soap. This is his bad experience. I want it to be a good experience, but this is what he dreads. Right? Like, I've never had a bad experience getting a blood drawn from me, but I still dread it. I don't want to get it done, right? And I think owners kind of assume that if their dog wasn't good for grooming, if their dog wasn't great, then the groomer must have been doing something, because they think in their head that the bad experience is pain. But the bad experience is pushing through fear. So while it's true, this doxy was having a not great experience based on other not great experiences, but the important part is that, because we found this out in the tub pretty much, the important part is that we tried to make it a good experience. Like, hey, let's calm down. Let's relax. And by the end of that bath, I'm looking for measurable progress. What I'm looking for is a dog who is now a little bit more relaxed. Like, he's not trying to climb up the edge of the tub and be next to his daddy. He's in the bottom of the tub. He's letting me touch him. Like, I'm repositioning him. I'm moving around him. He's not curling his lip at me. He's not turning fast. He's not stiff. His body isn't stiff. If I place my hand on it, I can gently rock his hips a little bit. He stiffens up if he gets worried, and that's something to watch for. But these are the kind of things I was showing his owner. Like, see, right now he's kind of loose, and he's like, yeah. I'm like, because we're trying to make this a better experience than he was anticipating. And who knows what happened before at other grooming shops, right? We're always working with the dog we have today, but I feel it's really important to make sure that owners know that it's not that another grooming shop did something mean to him. Just that some dogs are afraid of the things that we do, and they didn't get past that fear, or they were pushed a little bit too far. And that has more to do with just the dog being nervous. Being scared is the bad experience. That's the bad experience. Sure, a quick nail might be a bad experience, but, and I think groomers have observed this, and I don't know if other dog people really have, The dog who is totally calm about having their nails done doesn't usually get a nail clicked. And if they do, it doesn't turn into a bad experience. They're like, ooh, and that's about it, right? The dog that's really good for it, it doesn't often happen. And I'll tell you when it does happen is when one nail has been worn down at an entirely different rate than the others. That's usually when you have the accidental nail quick on a dog who's really, really good. Just that, one nail has started wearing down more. Their leg turns out at a different angle nowadays as they get a little older. But it doesn't often happen. So the dogs that got a nail quicked and were really goofy about it and really panicky about it probably were already panicky. That was probably the struggle to get the nails done to begin with. Now, I know a lot of owners who are thinking, well, but what if they tried something different? Now, that's a really good point. I like trying something different. If a dog is worried about their nails, I immediately first start off with, are they uncomfortable with the way that I'm holding them? And I know we started off with, the example of the tub, and we're switching it up to nails because my first thought is, are they uncomfortable with the way that I'm holding them? And is there a toe that's uncomfortable or a leg that's uncomfortable? And then move from there. Instead of thinking, boy, he really doesn't like toes, done. Right? I need you to start thinking in terms of, is this dog comfortable? Because discomfort and fear are the bad experience. Not necessarily pain, not necessarily that someone quicked your ear or you fell off a table or, quicked your ear. You know what I mean, nicked your ear, quicked your nail, fell off the table or something, like some horrible thing happened, right? And owners rarely think about their dog that comes in as a matted mess as set up for a bad experience. They don't think about that. They're like, oh, we want him to have a good experience. Then this can't happen because you're setting him up for a bad experience. You're setting him up for an unusual amount of discomfort. So when we look at that bad experience, we need to start thinking about how can we help these dogs stay, you're going to wait for it, here it comes, calm, comfortable, and cooperative. Like, where is the point where we see calm, comfortable, and cooperative fade out to more stressed or worried? Now, in this Doxy's case, it was walking through the door. Walking through the door, this dog was already, and part of why we had Dad stay is because he didn't want to let anybody pick him up. And Dad was willing to stay. And Dad was willing to follow instructions. And Dad was really pretty awesome. Great, if an owner is going to do that, I kind of like it if they stay. Because I kind of want them to also see, and this was in a grooming shop setting, not as a house call, I kind of want them to see that other dogs are like, doo-doo-doo-doo, they pick me up, they put me in the tub. Because sometimes people think that that's unusual. So if you have an owner who is capable of staying and your insurance covers that, whatever that case may be, you know what? Go ahead and give them the education that you're giving their dog. Let them be part of that process so that they can see he's not having a bad experience here because of anything I'm doing that's unusual. He's having a bad experience because he doesn't like bathing and he doesn't enjoy strangers. And we need to help him have a good experience. And that means we're not going to be doing everything today. I'm not doing his nails today. Why? He finally calmed down. Yes, he finally calmed down. He finally calmed down and he's letting me pet him a little bit. And I'm going to end there because that's good for today. We don't need to get it all done today. We need to get that out of our heads. You don't need to get it all done today. If they want everything done today, they can bring in a dog who's prepared for that. Right? Think about it. Dog training, it's nothing new. So they can bring in a dog that likes people, is good about being picked up. But we need to express it to our owners that I'm trying to help him. And actually the dog that starts to calm down is because they recognize like, oh, you're trying to be nice to me. You're being thoughtful in your process, right? I'm not just rushing it through. I'm not putting a muzzle on and then continuing on as if the dog is fine. Not that I'm against muzzles. Maybe that's an episode we should have at some point soon. I had one before, but we should probably get into that. I'm not against using tools, but I think that we need to help that dog have a good experience. Maintain calm, comfortable, and cooperative for as long as we can. And if they start getting scared, restore calm, comfortable, and cooperative. So by the end of the bath, the Doxy was in the tub and he was fairly loose. I mean, if I made a, loud noise or something, he would have easily startled, but fairly loose, letting us do our thing, toweling him off and just put him on leash, sent him home damp. That's okay. Didn't do his nails. His nails were included in that bath, so they're coming in for a separate nail trim. When we talk about nail trims in general and the dog that's having a bad experience, we can think about all of the things that go into what makes a bad experience. And sometimes it's just, I'm not comfortable with strangers. I'm not comfortable with strangers touching me all over. Oh my God, she's touching me with tools. Oh my God, it's all so crazy because their owners didn't prepare them well, and now we can fix it. That's what we have to do. We have to fix it. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. Another example of the classic bad experience, or the perceived he had a bad experience, is the dog who comes in matted. Now think about that. They're coming in matted, probably because they don't have a whole lot of experience with owners trying to brush them or work around all of the areas that need to be worked around. So they have a owner who brushes shoulders very, very nicely, but not armpits. Not the hock, not in between toes, right? So they don't have a whole lot of experience. And now they have this mat, which if you're not a groomer, you might not realize that mats pull. They pull on the skin. There can be sores underneath there. It can be really uncomfortable. Just the size of the mat could be causing problems with the way they're moving. A mat in between the pads of their feet or in between their toes could be really uncomfortable and pressing on their toes and creating some soreness that way. They can have skin infections underneath the mat. Like mats are not cool. Maybe that should be the title of this episode. Mats are not cool. But for owners to understand that, these mats are probably pretty sore. Now, as groomers, a dog that comes in matted is set up to have a bad experience, whether we want them to or not. Now, we want to minimize that. And the way that we minimize that is we decide pretty early on with the owner how we're going to go about taking care of these mats. Now, most of the time it's going to be a matter of either brushing them out fully or clipping them down fully. Sometimes it's a matter of, okay, I can clip down some areas and not others. And, like a great example of that is like golden retriever behind their ears. That hair that gets matted behind their ears is rarely something that can be saved. Because even if you brush it through, it's so damaged. Think about the modifications we can do for people. But we need owners to understand that this is a big project. This is a big job. And big jobs cost more. And I need groomers to understand. All right, here's one of my biggest peeves when I see it online. I try not to get engaged because it drives me crazy. The groomers who talk about, I will not torture your dog by brushing out this mat. Oh, I'm not going to torture your dog. What are you guys doing that is torture? I do not understand this part. So if you have a dog that is matted and you decide this is going to be okay to brush out, I'm going to use my right tools in the bathtub. I'm going to try to, wash and condition and use the dryer to blow out a bunch of these. I'm going to, all the ways, the neat tips that we have for getting out some of this gunk and separating out mats. And then I'm going to go in with a brush. And brushing doesn't hurt. Brushing does not hurt. Brushing should never hurt. So we need to be gentle with our tools and we need appropriate tool use. Brushing is tedious. That's what it is. It's not hurtful. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't harm. It's tedious. Brush burn tells me that you've been brushing wrong. I know wow, that's really taking a stern look at this, aren't you today, Chrissy? But that means that you're trying to catch the mat with the brush and then yank it out, right? You're brushing the skin above the mat or below the mat and you're pressing up against it. The brush is meant to tease out a mat, to tease it out, to break it up, and to work on tiny little pieces. Tiny little pieces. It's tedious. It takes time. And a dog might not have a whole lot of focus for something like that. There are lots of reasons why you might choose to not brush out mats. However, pain shouldn't be one of them. So stop that. Stop it. A nice tool, used appropriately. Like, I don't want to see combs underneath the brush and yanking, combs underneath the mat rather. Gosh, I need some more coffee. I don't want to see combs under a mat and yanking, or a brush under a mat and yanking. If you have to yank, you're not using your tool to the best. Yanking out mats, yes, that hurts. Yeah, and you know what? It's not a service I offer. Now, one of the things I've heard groomers say is, I don't have time to be brushing out all these mats at the kind of speed you're talking about, like just working on an edge and working around. You know what? If they are not willing to pay for your time, then they get some other option. If they're not willing to pay for any of your time, they go someplace else, because your time is valuable. So if what they want is to have it brushed out and you think that coat can be saved, you think that coat is going to be okay, then you need to make sure they understand what kind of time they're looking at and what kind of cost they're looking at, and that you might not have that kind of time available for them today. Because I think we also get wrapped up in this, well, he's here today and I have to get him done today. Not necessarily. They brought in a much bigger job than you booked. If you're booking a dog that you're thinking is in pretty decent condition, pretty well behaved, and they bring in something that's a much bigger job, yeah, you might not have booked that time. And it's okay to tell owners, I can work on part of this today, but I don't have enough time to do him fully today because I booked a full day and I'm not sending another dog home. I'm not going to reschedule one of my other customers today. Like, you should have told us that you have this big job. And that's one of the ways you can word it. Tell them straight up, this dog should take me about an hour and a half, and you just brought in like a 4-hour job, and I don't have 4 hours for you today. But what we as groomers tend to do is try to cram it in the day anyway. Right? And that's where we start getting into this idea that, like, oh my God, I don't have time for this. Like, I know it, he's almost done. I just need to get this mat out from it. Oh my God, now he's all wiggly and I need to get this mat out from under his chin, and I'm just going to get my comb underneath it and yank, which is, what am I going to say? The bad experience, right? That we're rushed and we're pushing through it and we're doing things hard and we're doing things fast and we're getting frustrated and they're playing beat the clock. You shouldn't have to play beat the clock. You should tell owners straight up, this is going to take a lot of time. This is going to take a lot of time. Now, another thing that owners kind of get in their heads, some of them think that, well, he's not matted anyway. So, the brush is going to be easy. Just brush over the surface like I do at home. Right? We need to show them out in the waiting room that is not doable. Like, yeah, what you've been brushing, and now underneath here, a lot of owner problems can be solved with good communication in the waiting room before their dog comes in behind the wall with us, right? To lift that fur, show them, like, I can't get a comb through this. Oh, well, I didn't brush him this morning. Like, no, you didn't brush all the way down since his last groom. Give brushing lessons. But if we talk to them about, okay, I can clip this off. Now, a recent discussion I saw where people were like, the owner doesn't want him shaved, but I literally do like a 7 on this dog every time. What the heck are they talking about? Because some owners think shaving is when we take like a Bic razor to a woman's legs or a man's face. They think that's shaving. They don't want their dog shaved. If we tell them, clip it down, clip all of these mats off, right? And that's a reasonable way to get a dog who is matted groomed. And depends on the coat type, of course. I would dread doing it with one of the big long double coats, but there are times where we just need a do-over, right? Think it through, decide what you're going to present to them as their best option. But here's the thing, you still need a good significant amount of time to clip off mats on a matted dog. That's not a normal trim. And that's one of the things that owners don't understand, and a lot of other dog world people don't understand. It's like, well, he's just getting shaved down anyway. Like, yeah, that's a lot of work. And that's a lot of work for a dog. So if we want to help this dog have a good experience so that he doesn't have the classic bad experience, we need to not rush him. We need to work on whatever we have time to work on today. And we need to express to owners that, you know what, just clipping him down, yeah, that's a lot for a dog. It's not, no, the clipper blade goes through nice and smooth on things like bodies, right? Going down the back, down the hip, down the torso. But all those little tiny divots in that front leg, going down a tube a million times trying to get every little angle, right? It's meticulous work. Getting in between toes, getting up around his bum, getting in behind the ears, getting every single teeny tiny millimeter of this dog done with a clipper blade is a lot of work for a dog. It's a lot of work for us. It's a lot of work for a dog. It's different than a regular trim where you might be, working with a dog who's used to it, who's well groomed, well brushed, doesn't have any sore spots or itchy spots from where they've had a mat hanging off of them for 2 months, and you can easily, clearly see every little nook and cranny. And most of those dogs, even if you are shaving them, you're leaving just a little bit of fuzz in those areas so that they have a little bit of cuteness. Right? You kind of want a little bit of a foot, a little bit of straight leg, even if you're taking them super short. So to kind of make sure that owners know, yeah, clipping them down, not that super easy thing that they think it is. Like, oh, they just clipped him down and I don't know why it still cost me so much money. Because it's a lot of work. And because your dog came in matted, and your dog needs extra time, and your dog is not properly prepared to come to a grooming shop, and we want your dog to have a good experience because we expect your dog to be groomed on a regular basis for the 15-year lifespan. Well, he's already 4, and we get him done once every 6 months. Yeah, that's something to fix, right? We need to fix that. You can't bring him in every 6 months matted. And some of these things are things we need to express to our owners and express better because they think the only bad experience is if their dog physically got hurt. Well, I don't understand why he's like that. He's been groomed 3 times before because he's 6 years old and he's only been groomed 3 times in his entire life. And it was because he was pelted, no, that is the bad experience. Not because we're mean or because we're doing anything mean or because we clipped him down or we didn't clip him down, but because he isn't prepared for it. He finds it scary, and now someone's going to touch every teeny tiny millimeter of his body. Millimeter of his body. There is no spot on a dog that doesn't get touched if we're grooming. We're everywhere. 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 And owners need to understand that we don't want the dogs to have a bad experience either. But the bad experience can be avoided through things like training and keeping them well maintained, bringing them in more often instead of trying to avoid what they consider to be a bad experience. Right? Oh, he doesn't like grooming, so we only bring him in when he really needs it. Yeah, that's an owner who needs some education. Their heart's in the right place, needs some education. You've got to bring him in more often. We need to get him used to it. So circling back to the doxy this week, you know what? That guy's going to bring him in again, and we're going to work on it. We're going to work on it slowly. And that's how we're going to help this dog be good for grooming. That's important. We don't want him to have a bad experience, but it's not because bad experiences don't happen because a dog got hurt. Bad experiences are because dogs are getting groomed. They're being touched all over by strangers. And strangers with tools and tools that make sounds. And, oh, it's all so weird. And it can be prevented. It can be prevented through scheduling. It can be prevented through just setting some boundaries with customers. Like, okay, I'm going to work with him for whatever he can handle today. I don't have 4 to 6 hours for your particular dog today because, we actually have a bunch of dogs coming in today. We can book you for more. We need to set some boundaries. We need to take charge of that. Take charge. Tell owners what they need to know because they don't understand. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.